Imagine standing on Earth, but not the Earth you know. No trees, no rivers, no mountains, not even a sky you could breathe. Instead, you'd see a giant ball of fire and rock, glowing red with molten lava. This was our planet 4.5 billion years ago, a world so hostile that survival was impossible. In the beginning, the Earth was born from dust and rock swirling around the young sun. Gravity pulled these fragments together, and each collision released unimaginable heat. The result? A planet covered in an endless ocean of magma. Imagine rivers of fire stretching across the horizon, the ground shaking constantly as new impacts reshaped the surface. And it wasn't peaceful. Long. Space was a war zone. Giant asteroids, some the size of mountains, kept crashing into the young Earth. One of them, bigger than Mars, slammed into our planet with such force that it threw out massive amounts of rock and dust. Over time, that debris formed something you know very well today, our moon. The moon itself is a reminder of just how violent Earth's birth really was, but even in this destruction, the building blocks of life were gathering. Volcanoes erupted non-stop, releasing gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen into the atmosphere. This created a toxic, suffocating sky. Thick clouds, no oxygen, no blue color, just a heavy red haze. If you could stand there, you wouldn't survive for a second. And yet, this chaos was shaping the stage for something extraordinary. Water, the most important ingredient for life, was arriving. Some of it came from deep within the Earth, locked inside the planet since its formation, released through volcanic eruptions. Some may have arrived from icy comets that struck Earth again and again, delivering frozen water that melted on impact. Then came the rain, not rain as we know it, but endless, violent storms lasting millions of years. Imagine lightning flashing across a black sky, thunder shaking the ground, and rain pouring so hard it carved rivers into the cooling lava. Slowly, craters and valleys filled with water, and for the first time, the first oceans appeared. These oceans were not calm, blue, and peaceful. They were boiling hot, filled with dissolved chemicals and minerals from volcanic rock. But that primordial soup was exactly the right recipe for something amazing to happen. Scientists believe that in this soup of chemicals, with energy from lightning and heat from volcanic vents, simple molecules started combining into more complex ones. Proteins, amino acids, and other building blocks of life slowly began to form. It wasn't life yet, but the ingredients were there. For almost 1 billion years, Earth was in this state, oceans bubbling with potential, volcanoes reshaping the land, asteroids still crashing occasionally, and the sky glowing with storms. No life existed, but the possibility of life was waiting, hidden in every drop of water. Think about that. A planet born in fire and chaos was slowly transforming into a world ready to give birth to life. From a burning ball of rock, Earth had now become a water planet, with vast oceans that would soon become the cradle of the very first living things. This is where our story begins. Not with life itself, but with the stage being set. The question is, how did those chemicals in the ocean take the final step and become alive? That mystery unfolds in the next chapter of our journey through deep time. Billions of years ago, Earth had finally cooled enough to hold oceans. Endless storms had filled the craters with water, and volcanoes had created a toxic sky. Still, no life existed. The world was silent, except for the roaring of volcanoes and the crash of waves on a lifeless shore. But deep in those oceans, something extraordinary was about to begin. Inside the bubbling soup of chemicals, simple molecules were colliding, breaking apart, and forming again. Lightning, ultraviolet rays from the sun, and heat from volcanic vents gave them energy. Slowly, these chemicals formed more complex chains, amino acids, proteins, and other building blocks of life. Scientists call this the primordial soup. It was not alive, but it was full of potential. Then somewhere in those oceans, perhaps near a volcanic vent or a shallow pool warmed by the sun, something changed. Molecules arranged themselves in a way that could copy themselves. It was the first spark of life. These earliest forms of life were nothing like animals or plants. They were tiny, single-celled organisms, microscopic, invisible to the human eye. They didn't breathe oxygen because there wasn't any. Instead, they fed on simple chemical reactions. Yet they were alive, and that changed everything. For hundreds of millions of years, Earth belonged only to these microbes. They multiplied, adapted, and spread across the oceans. Imagine a world where every drop of water carried countless microscopic lives, drifting and dividing endlessly. Then came one of the greatest revolutions in history. Some microbes discovered how to capture sunlight. Through a process we now call photosynthesis, they turned sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into food. And as a byproduct, they released oxygen. At first, that oxygen reacted with iron in the oceans, staining the seas with rust-red color and forming vast deposits of iron rock that we still mine today. But slowly, oxygen began to escape into the atmosphere. This event is known as the Great Oxidation Event, around 2.5 billion years ago. It was a turning point. Oxygen was deadly to many early microbes, wiping out entire populations. But for others, it was a gift, a new source of energy. Life adapted, becoming stronger and more diverse. The sky, once choked with toxic gases, slowly turned blue. The air we breathe today was born from that ancient revolution. By this time, Earth had already transformed twice, first from fire into water and now from poison into air. The stage was ready for life to grow more complex. For billions of years, microbes ruled the planet, shaping it in silence. Imagine that. Nearly 3 billion years of Earth's history passed with nothing but microscopic life. No animals, no plants, just oceans filled with tiny, invisible beings. Yet without them, nothing else would have been possible. They created the oxygen in our sky, they set the foundation of ecosystems, and they proved that life could not only exist, but thrive. From the first fragile spark in the ocean, life had taken root. But the story was only just beginning. Soon, tiny single cells would combine, evolve, and give birth to the first complex creatures, and with them, a new chapter in Earth's history. Billions of years had passed since Earth's first spark of life. For ages, our planet was ruled only by microscopic creatures, tiny, single-celled organisms too small for the naked eye. But slowly, something remarkable happened. Life was about to take its next great leap, from the simple to the complex. The first step came when single cells began working together. Some cells clumped into colonies, gaining strength in numbers. Over time, these colonies became more organized. Cells began to specialize, doing different tasks for the benefit of the group. This was the dawn of multicellular life. It was one of the most important transitions in the history of Earth. Around 1.5 to 2 billion years ago, the first truly complex cells appeared. These are called eukaryotes, cells with a nucleus and internal structures. How did they form? Scientists believe it was through an extraordinary partnership. A larger cell swallowed a smaller one, and instead of digesting it, they began to live together. The smaller cell provided energy, becoming what we now call a mitochondrion, the powerhouse of modern cells. It was an ancient alliance, and without it, plants, animals, and humans would never have existed. Alliance, and without it, plants, animals, and humans would never have existed. For hundreds of millions of years, these complex cells lived quietly, multiplying in the oceans. Then, around 600 million years ago, the pace of change accelerated. Strange new creatures began appearing in the seas. They were soft-bodied, shaped like fronds, discs, and ribbons. This period is known as the Ediacaran era. The ocean floor looked like an alien landscape, filled with creatures that had no eyes, no bones, no shells, and most of them left no descendants. They were experiments in the story of life. Then, about 541 million years ago, Earth witnessed one of the most extraordinary events in natural history, the Cambrian explosion. In a geological blink of an eye, less than 20 million years, life diversified on a scale never seen before. Almost every major group of animals appeared in this short span of time. The seas were now alive with activity. Creatures with shells, spines, and teeth evolved for protection and hunting. Trilobites scuttled across the ocean floor, their segmented bodies armored against predators. Strange animals with grasping claws and circular mouths hunted in the waters. For the first time, eyes evolved, changing the rules of survival forever. With sight came new strategies: chase, hide, stalk, and flee. The first predator-prey arms race had begun. Oceans, once quiet and simple, became battlegrounds of survival. This explosion of diversity shaped the blueprint for almost every animal alive today. But the story didn't stop in the sea. Around 470 million years ago, life made another daring move. Plants began colonizing the land. At first, they were simple moss-like organisms hugging the damp edges of shores. But they spread, evolving stems and roots, and soon small forests of ferns and early trees covered the continents. These plants transformed the planet again, pumping more oxygen into the air and creating soil where none had existed before. With plants came a new opportunity for animals. Insects were among the first to venture onto land, feeding on plants and laying eggs in moist environments. Amphibians soon followed, fish-like creatures with strong fins that slowly turned into legs. They crawled from water to land, breathing with primitive lungs. These were the pioneers, the ancestors of frogs, salamanders, and eventually reptiles and mammals. By around 360 million years ago, Earth was covered in lush green landscapes, and rivers and swamps were filled with amphibians. Gigantic insects buzzed through the air, dragonflies with wingspans as wide as an eagle's. Oxygen levels were higher than today, allowing creatures to grow to enormous sizes. Imagine walking through a forest where millipedes stretched longer than a human and insects the size of hawks filled the sky. But the journey of life was not smooth. Time and again, mass extinctions wiped the planet clean. Volcanic eruptions, shifting continents, and climate changes destroyed entire lineages. Yet each time, life found a way to recover and to grow even stronger. One of the greatest breakthroughs came when some reptiles developed a new kind of egg, protected by a shell. This freed them from the need to lay eggs in water, and it opened the door to conquering dry land. From these early reptiles came the dinosaurs, who would one day dominate the Earth for over 160 million years. But that is a story for later. For now, what matters is that by the end of this period, Earth was no longer a world of microbes. It was a living planet filled with forests, oceans swarming with fish and strange sea creatures, skies buzzing with giant insects, and land creatures taking their first uncertain steps. Think about the journey so far. From a fiery ball of rock and lava, Earth cooled into a water world. From a silent ocean of microbes, life evolved the power of complexity, vision, movement, and survival. And now the stage was ready for the great age of giants, the rise of reptiles and the dinosaurs. Life, once fragile and invisible, had become unstoppable. By the time reptiles had conquered the land, Earth was already a living planet, transformed by billions of years of change. But now came a new chapter. The age of giants. Around 250 million years ago, reptiles began to diversify. Some evolved into fearsome predators, others into heavy plant eaters, and soon they gave rise to the most famous creatures in history, the dinosaurs. For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs dominated every continent. From towering long-necked sauropods to fierce hunters like Tyrannosaurus rex, they ruled the land in forms more diverse and spectacular than we can imagine. The oceans, too, were filled with giants, marine reptiles with massive jaws and long fins. And in the skies, flying reptiles soared, some with wingspans as wide as small airplanes. This was truly a world of monsters. But Earth has never been gentle for long. Around 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid struck near what is now Mexico. The impact was catastrophic. Firestorms spread across continents, dust filled the sky, blocking sunlight for months, and ecosystems collapsed. Most of the dinosaurs, along with countless other species, vanished forever. Yet extinction always opens doors. Small mammals, who had lived in the shadows of dinosaurs, suddenly had a chance to thrive. Over millions of years, they evolved into a stunning variety of forms, from tiny shrews to giant mammoths, from sea-dwelling whales to tree-swinging primates. And from among the primates came something new: intelligence. Around 2 million years ago, the first early humans appeared in Africa. They were tool-makers, fire users, and hunters. Over time, they spread across the globe, adapting to ice ages, deserts, and forests. Then came art, language, and culture. In just a few 100,000 years, a blink compared to Earth's vast timeline, humans rose to reshape the planet itself. Today, we stand not as spectators of history, but as its storytellers. Think about it. From a burning ball of rock to oceans filled with microbes, from strange Cambrian creatures to mighty dinosaurs, and finally to us. Every chapter led here. We are the result of 4.5 billion years of change, survival, and adaptation. The story of Earth is not just about the past. It is a reminder that our planet is alive, always changing, and that we are only the latest chapter in an epic tale that began in fire and water and still continues today.